guys, there's been some changes to the Philosophy Club. I don't know if you guys heard. The old vice president, Raul, he did a very bad thing. He did a very bad thing. He's going away for a long time, and you know what? He deserves it.
He really does.
It turns out he was guilty. Can you guys hear that?
He was guilty.
I'm sorry, guys. We just heard our echo in the other row, and it's totally. I'm such a professional. But yeah, he was guilty. Can you guys let me know if you believe this or not? He was guilty of killing the truth.
It seems like a Guillermo type of thing to do.
Okay, I understand his name is Guillermo.
Guillermo.
If you recall, he pronounces it.
Right.
He's Raul to us. He's Raul. So Raul, if you see me, pretend you never knew me. Anyways, guys, let's get into this. As you all know, if you saw the season 2 finale, a lot of our executive officers for the students for this club, they all left. They all went to 4 years. A couple of them went to SMU. A couple went to UNT. So yeah, kind of a new influx. A lot of young blood in the Philosophy Club here. So typically how we start is we introduce ourselves, and we start from the far corner. So, Uche, season 1 stalwart.
My name is. I just recently changed my name to Conor McGregor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I mean it's a good thing. But yeah, my name is Conor McGregor. I'm the 2-weight UFC world champion. I'm stopping by at Richland College.
Colin McLoser.
Stopped by at Richland College for a while to bless a couple people with my radio appearance.
Wow, I guess you're so humble.
Taking over the entire radio.
The being defeated nationwide like
no,
that.
It was pretty. I got a couple good hits, but I figured that for his last fight, it should be a good story for him to win.
You're so gracious.
I was just being really nice to him.
You're the perfect model for young people everywhere to look up to.
I appreciate it.
That you're gonna ask for a rematch, not true.
No, I'm not gonna ask for a rematch at all. He's an old man. He can't handle a rematch. He's in the wheelchair now. I heard. His spine gave out last week.
So if I'm following you correctly, this is some metaphor whereby I'm McGregor. Or no, you're McGregor.
I'm McGregor. You're not Mayweather. You're not old.
He's
enough.
old. He's got to push him out.
He's bald.
Okay, so you know what? That brings us to a new student officer here. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Emma. I'm doing the communication stuff. So if you see stuff on Facebook and Twitter, that's me. Which actually, do you want me to go ahead and tell people the Twitter and Facebook pages? And stuff?
Actually, here's the thing, Emma. We do have what are called segments. Yeah. Now, I say that tongue in cheek because we are horrible at sticking to them. But we do have a plug segment. But in light of season 3, I say we switch things up. We don't want to get stale here at the Philosophy Club Radio Hour. Let's do plugs whenever we damn well please. So please, Emma, plug away.
Okay. So our Facebook page is just Richland Philosophy Club. It has some links to the YouTube videos of the previous seasons, and soon we'll have this season's link. And our Twitter is RLC Philosophy Club, and you can tweet us at RLC Philosophy. So those are both out there for y'all to find and be able to check everything out. You can email me from the Facebook one if you'd like to get the weekly email updates.
There you have it, y'all. So once again, we are taking the social media and not just richlandstudentmedia.com and YouTube. We are putting ourselves on Facebook and Twitter. The requests have been there from day one. Well, more like year one. And we're finally going to go ahead and do it. I must confess, I'm not one to Facebook. I basically deleted my account in 2010, and I have this weird ghost account out there. So I'm not really familiar with the ups and downs of it. Emma here is, and she's going to, as the new communications officer, I might say, she is going to be steering our social media presence on Facebook and Twitter. So great to have you, Emma. Welcome aboard. I was lucky enough to have Emma as a student in my summer introduction philosophy class. Was it summer 1, was it? Yeah, summer 1. And I think she's a great addition. And maybe she'll eventually successfully push Uche out of my life, and then things will really start to land. Okay, guys.
My plan is working slowly. It's my master plan.
Fire her.
Uche, of course, is coming on as the president of the Philosophy Club. And we've got some other officers who will be introduced periodically throughout the season 3. And I will say this as well, as long as we're plugging away here. I know we've talked so much philosophy already. We couple things. We will be collaborating with the debate club coming up sometime very soon. And that actually leads us to what our opening topic was. The debate club wants to have a debate on capital punishments. And so we thought, well, hey, maybe what a suitable first topic for the philosophy club. It's something that I think a lot of students already have an opinion on and would be willing to kind of flesh it out. And also it would be good preparation, a good primer for the debate, the public debate, which I have graciously agreed to faculty officiate or moderate.
Nice.
So yeah, that should be fun. It was supposed to be Brian Miranda against Uche here until I heard Uche chickened out. Or you got cold feet? What happened, buddy?
I have a class. I have a class scheduled legitimately.
How convenient. And so, yeah.
I need to explain myself. I feel the need to explain myself. Okay, so I signed up for the debate before I registered for classes. Then I registered for classes, not knowing when the debate was. Then this, that, classes in the same day. I'm a terrible person.
I feel like he feels guilty.
Yeah.
Oh,
Guilty
yeah.
conscious.
A little bit.
Has to tell us what's going on.
We have a knock at the door. Who can this be?
Clifford, the big red dog. So Manzi stepped away for a minute. He's saying that he does no longer wants to be associated with the philosophy club, but I understand his concern. It's a very stressful situation. I'm gone.
Don't worry, guys. I'm back. This show is back to normal. I hope you didn't tune out just then. I know the content.
I kept them in, kept the seat warm.
I just got a text saying, "Why isn't Uche hosting the show?" Ooh,
Did
well,
you
you got
really?
supporters.
Did you really?
Yeah, you know who that was? In fact,
Raul?
what was his buddy's name?
The
The Mr. Dude. What was that guy's name?
Joe. Shout out to Joe.
Oh, that's right. Shout
Out to Joe. Shout out to Raul. Shout out to Cliff and Emma. Shout out to Jeffrey Manzi. Shout out to Conor McGregor. Shout out to the UFC.
That's a lot of shout outs.
Yeah, and so we have Cliff has come to join us. Cliff was around a lot in season 1, and as I've mentioned before in a previous podcast,
Good to
Cliff,
see y'all again.
Cliff is a big reason why we have the radio show. It was an idea that he floated out there, and yeah, so we're continuing it. So it's nice to have him back.
Yeah, good to see y'all again.
Cool.
Godfather.
It's, always. Yeah.
Cliff, do you have any other club affiliations or anything you want to plug?
Oh, yeah. It's the Black Student Union. We're doing all sorts of things. We're might have a meeting tomorrow. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, you're good.
Oh, cool. Yeah. At some point in the near future, you'll see our flyer around the halls. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and thanks for dropping by, because here's something I want to float out your way, guys. I want to try to get, because last year we had some pretty cool guests. Kind of we had the Dr. Ewing, of course, John Ewing. He was he is the professor of a full professor of philosophy and religion here, and he also he faculty oversees the Phi Theta Kappa chapter. He was a guest, and then the semester prior to that we had Dr. Kathleen Stevens, who oversees the honors program as well as the learning communities around here. What I would like to do is I've had other people come forth and ask to be guests on the show, admins and faculty members, which is great. But I'm also very interested in having at least somebody from another club on campus to sort of come in and sort of pitch their club and say what it's about, and then also kind of engage us in whatever the philosophical discussion is. And so I guess, yeah, technically we have that here with Cliff. And I guess technically with Uche, insofar as he represents...
Male achievement program.
That's what it is.
I'm
Yeah.
part of the Focus Club too.
Yeah, you have...
Very cool.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Even better,
the
guys.
Fellowship of Christian University Students.
Yeah, see, so again, having others cross-pollinating in this way, I think is something that we should continue to encourage and foster.
It's most likely very fruitful if we do interact.
I totally agree. And again, that's part of the impetus for the collaboration with the debate club and then with the art club as well down the line, and hopefully others as well.
Mm-hmm.
So just if I haven't already mentioned this, should have been the first thing I mentioned. Instead, we're 20 minutes in. The Philosophy Club is meeting every Tuesday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. in room EO 76. So that is, again, that's the room we had last year. It's our favorite room. Student Life has been great to us. Got us that room again just when we requested, time-wise. So very, very happy about that. The flyers will be going up shortly this week, and then you'll see them around campus. And so, yeah, we have the meeting on Tuesday, the radio show on Wednesday. I want to see how this kind of changes things up a bit, because there was always some distance between the club meeting and the radio show. So things got more of a time to simmer, but also I think it made the recap a bit more difficult. So I can kind of remember with greater clarity than normal how last week's meeting or yesterday's meeting went. So yeah, and then I'll introduce myself. I'm Professor Manzi. I am the faculty sponsor here at the Philosophy Club Radio Hour and the Philosophy Club as well. And yeah, one last thing. We're going to be dropping a little kind of Easter egg of sorts coming up. If you go to the Richland YouTube handle, or you see our YouTube playlists, you'll see that it just goes from kind of episode, it's episode, then it goes to episode 3. Because the episode that's up there is actually, the first one is actually episode 2. We never released the pilot episode. We never released the very first kind of trial sort of run. And that's because we didn't video record it. It's entirely audio. So what we're going to do is, I spoke with our producer here, Jack, and we're going to drop the very first ever rendition of the Philosophy Club. It's going to be audio only, but you can be able to look at it on YouTube with some sort of banner in the background and check it out. Kind of see our humble beginnings.
Drop it on them.
Very cool.
And so, yeah, that should be great. So you kind of get a double whammy this week. So without any further ado, guys, yeah, time for the recap. Requack.
Quack.
You know what that means, folks. It's the requack.
It's ready. It's back.
Requack. So, guys, what were the salient talking points of the meeting yesterday on capital punishments? First of all, let me ask you this. What did you think about capital punishment when you first heard the topic? Like, what comes to your mind right away? Let's do some free association.
The first thing that comes to mind is the death penalty. Just putting a guy down for a heinous crime.
Okay.
Guy or girl.
Okay. What about y'all? What is she? The little researcher over there.
No, I was posting on Facebook and Twitter that we're live right now.
This is the best. She's the best. She's gonna do so well in this position. Cool. So Emma, do you have any thoughts on the death penalty? I know you were kind of under the weather. You couldn't make it yesterday.
Yeah. I honestly think there's a lot of other options that you can use that can be much more creative to get the same point across, basically.
Yeah,
and that's
interesting.
not necessarily taking somebody's life, because I believe everybody should have the chance to change and try to alter their ways.
Cool. Yeah, and that came up in a certain sense on yesterday's meeting. This idea of what is the focus of jail? Is it to rehab? Well, it's tough to kill somebody and say that was in the name of rehabilitation. You pretty much eliminate all possibility thereof.
Right.
So yeah, certainly that would brush up against other sensibilities. Cliff, do you have any thoughts? You were expressing some thoughts yesterday.
Historically speaking, it should be outlawed. The death penalty should be outlawed worldwide,
100%.
just because of how often it is abused.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people share that sentiment. But before we get into that per se, because I think that is something important.
That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, and I think it's one that many people share. But let's talk about the idea of capital punishment, and maybe this is counterproductive because it's never this way. But let's talk about it as though it's ideally being used in the way it was intended. So no corruption, just the very idea of punitively putting somebody's to death for wrongs that they have committed, for crimes they have committed. Why do you think we have it then? Why is it a thing?
Why is capital punishment a thing?
Yeah, why do we have it in America?
The only reasonable reason is to say it's a deterrent to those that want to avoid the death sentence. Yeah, that's all. I'm sure you can find that when somebody saying that
Definitely.
when it was passed.
I could say that it's a punishment, a way to, if someone takes a life or scars a life, it could be a way of compensating.
Ah, yeah. So again, this came up as well. This idea of retribution. So again, the death penalty seems to rest on an idea of retributive justice, which again, retributive retribution. It means that if certain something has been lost, then there needs to be compensation for it. Not necessarily, again, like you lose money, you replace the money. But again, if you do something especially heinous, like murder an innocent person in cold blood, well, perhaps that is tantamount or to saying, well, if you don't respect life in this way, the only fair retribution is to maybe put this person to death. I mean, is that something? Does that sound persuasive? Do you think that's effective? Do you think it'll help those come to closure, the victims? You know, I mean, these are questions that I think we raised and maybe didn't get into as deeply as we can. I mean, so what do you think? I do think it's a deterrent, because I mean, nobody wants to die. I mean, when you die, you pretty much have forfeited any sort of experiences of pleasure or satisfaction you've ever known.
I think
Okay. Yeah.
I do think that it is a deterrent. I think that it's a way to kind of be a scare tactic almost. But another thing I think it comes across as is that it's almost like asking for revenge. Like, oh, you hurt me, but in a just way. Like, we have justified that is okay to want the death penalty through law and make it legal to kill a person because they did you wrong or they did something wrong to someone you love.
Yeah.
And I think that it's used kind of as a just way of getting revenge through our justice system.
Oh, I think that's true. I think that's definitely how it's pitched. Yeah. What else?
Well, I would think that wouldn't wanting someone to pay you like if someone crashes your car and you want money from them, that's also you can twist that into revenge.
You can, yeah. But there can also be, you can, one, honestly just want them to own up to it and say, hey, you caused damages to my car. I'm going to have to pay out for these. I would appreciate if you would help supplement that in some way because you hit my car. There's the kind way of that. And then there's the way that you made a fender bender that's only going to cost $200 to fix. I'm going to sue you for $1,000. And that's when you're looking at revenge because you want the time, all that to come in. And so, yeah, anything can twist into revenge, but there's a way to do that without it being revenge. You know what I mean? Where it's like, hey, look, I'm going to have to pay out for this because you made a mistake. I'd appreciate if you'd compensate me for that since this was your thing.
Respond to that with something. We use a car, for example, but when it's something so severe as a life that cannot be re-given to someone or replaced, I think that there is no compensation in time. All the potential that person had being halted for the instinctual just anger that a person felt, all that being halted, what can be given as compensation to that?
Right, but wanting compensation to that, the difference there is that compensation in monetary value and the compensation emotionally. You can't compensate somebody emotionally. So that's what I was saying. Like that person who's asking for the $1,000, even though the fender job only costs $200, the $1,000's for like emotional and time and all that difference. But so you can't really compensate somebody for that ever. There's not a true way to do that. There's never going to be a way. The best thing for you to do is say, look, I know I screwed up. I'm sorry. And to get that from somebody. And that's the closest thing you can ever get. Mm-hmm. It's never going to truly be perfect. But you got to learn to, I believe you have to learn to forgive. You can't hold on to that stuff because it's just going to be baggage and hate hanging on in you in the long run instead. And you're going to make yourself more miserable by holding on to that. You're not going to do anything to them. So the death penalty doesn't do anything to affect that. It just says, hey, look, he's gone
Arguably.
now.
Is anybody familiar with the idea that you do want you do want to make sometimes a loss can motivate somebody to try and make their mark on the world with such notions like if somebody drunk drivers want to remind everybody not to drink and drive is they will carry their that kind of they will demand quality of life from anybody that drinks and drives, right? Is
Yeah.
the instinct for revenge does kick in, even if for those affected. That's especially when it happens.
I like what you guys are saying. I think you're kind of all getting at something about revenge, namely that revenge implies some sort of malevolence, right? That you're actively trying to hurt somebody. So it goes beyond compensation. I mean, I appreciate your analogies over there, because as somebody who's currently involved in a lawsuit involving an automobile accident, I can certainly understand what you're all saying. At any rate, I will be very disappointed in my lawyers if they don't give me everything I'm asking for. Jack, can we cut that out? I think that's going to make me in some way liable for something else. No, point being is this, y'all. I think that if we really look at the sort of justifications for using for employing capital punishment in America, I think you kind of have to look to, because as you said, capital punishment seems to be it exists in a lot of different nations, in different forms and different justifications or rationalizations. Therefore, however, in America at least, I think it has a lot to do with the religious foundation of the country. The capital punishment is 100% consistent with I would say Christian doctrine, and so that begs the question: how, in what way? And it has to do, I think, with notions of, again, this idea of retribution and this idea of morality, really. So I mean, the obvious question: is it moral? Because it's certainly legal in some, depending on the state, to put someone to death for to sentence someone to death. But whether or not it's moral, I think, is really more of what we're asking for. But not necessarily. I just think that's what we're talking about right now. We need not.
Looking through rules found in religious texts, you're going to find some things that you would find to be motivated in vengeance. That's my observation.
I think you certainly see that in the Old Testament, especially
vengeance and not justice or any form of it. Unless it's just the best, the one that everybody agrees upon, then that's what happens.
And how often does that really happen, where everybody is totally in agreement? It's tough. And so even then, there's like a general agreement, but there are always little kind of disagreements percolating.
Well, are you going to say something, Manji?
No.
Okay.
This is diary of the mouth until one of the students talks.
Okay,
that's my approach to this.
I'll say what I said, what I started off in the club with.
Yes, please do. Oh yeah, we haven't recapped really.
Yeah. Okay, but I basically, my justification for the death penalty is the thing that separates humans from other animals is the empathy and compassion that we have in our minds. Okay. The ability on a deep level to cooperate in a cohesive society. And in a human, you can say there are two parts. There's the conscious mind, and then there's the instinctual side of a human being. The instinctual side of the human being wants things like sex, it desires sex, it desires greed, more things for itself. It lashes out in anger, it feels its emotions. And the conscious mind is what holds us together and helps us thrive as intellectual beings. So I would say that if a person,
well said,
is feeling these instinctual desires, and they feel them so strong that they're willing to disband their intellectual side and feed the instinctual side of themselves, like for the anger, for the greed, or for the desire for sex, if you're willing to rape a woman just because you desire it that much. Triggered. If you're able to rape a woman just because you desire it that much, you're disbanding the side of you that is humane. You're disbanding the side of you that can
be rational.
Yeah, that can be rational.
Capable
and
of forgiveness.
Into society.
Yeah.
I would say that at that point, when a person does that, they have pushed aside their humanity to feed their desires, and in that, they become like any other wild animal that is a threat to the people that it's around.
Hey, okay. You
interesting.
know what this what Uche, what you said reminds me of
What?
this episode of Law and Order.
I've never seen.
Oh, I've seen like every episode.
It's the one with the
Was I the bad guy or the good guy?
You're the guy. No, let me explain this. It's really it's kind of cool.
Yeah, let
what
me
you
hear.
said just lines up with this.
cool.
It was played recently. It's the episode with the guy from Scandal.
I've never seen that.
Do y'all,
I've never seen Scandal.
No, okay. It's
I live it.
like Olivia Pope's father. That's that guy who he played. He was in an episode of Law and Order where his daughter was murdered. Well, his daughter was treated so badly by her supposed boyfriend that she eventually killed herself, and her father goes and kills the guy who treated her so badly that she lost control of her own life. And
It's a comedy?
yeah, no. This
Law and Order.
this is Law and Order.
Oh, my bad.
It just lines up with your emotions will take over if you allow them to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Or sometimes you may not have control of it. There's this episode of House where
Love that
some
show.
guy had an imbalance in his brain that caused him to murder somebody.
Yeah, I remember that one.
This episode of Star Trek where this civilization gives the life of the murderer to the family of the
Wow.
victim.
Yeah.
Things like that are how maybe things could have things like this could have been handled.
Yeah.
And possibly in the future or somewhere else in a galaxy far, far away. You know what I mean?
No, that makes sense. We're just going to take a break. We'll be right back with TV Guy Talk. Check back in 5 minutes, y'all. This is a word from our sponsors. I'm just joking.
Okay, I was like, what is happening?
No, I think you're right. I love those examples.
Revenue.
Is there a way to get sponsors? Can we do that somehow?
I'm sure we could.
Conor McGregor, shout out, sponsor us.
Yeah, and so no, I want to return to Cliff's points though because I think it relates heavily to what we were just talking about as well as what I think was the bulk of the conversation on Tuesday, and that was this idea that well look, if you have this instinctual need, this anger, this animal instinct as we're putting it, if it takes hold of you, as we've already explained, yeah, that means that you're no longer rational. Well, that's grounds to plead for insanity. Or you get to that point because you're pushed to it due to fight or flight self-defense. And usually if you have a self-defense reason or you claim insanity,
Pardon?
you don't get found guilty. Or at least not of maybe the kind of charge that would wind you with capital punishment. And so that's what's so interesting is that it has to be premeditated. And I think this was the point Brian was emphasizing, that if it's premeditated, it shows rational calculation, which shows intention, which demands in turn the accountability or freedom of the action. And if the action is deemed to be so unjust, and maybe this can include also repeat offenses and things like that, now we can start to talk about maybe justifying capital punishment.
Yeah, because if that's a situation where it's a premeditated, it's not a snap instance. If it's
Exactly.
definitely something that you have calculated and desired, I can't see how that person would be anything but a threat to a cohesive society where we all live with each other. I can't really see how.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that it would be wrong to kill someone. Or that's my explanation of the mentality that someone would go through killing someone. But
Interesting.
because the life is such a sincere, unique thing that cannot be replaced at all.
Aw.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Valentine's Day coming up. Yeah, life is such a sincere thing that cannot be replaced. Whatever, I don't know what I was going to say anymore.
He's just waxing
Well,
poetic.
there's something else that I want to say is that like
We're out of time, guys. Anyways, thanks. No, I'm joking.
Rude.
There's a lot of me doing
Rude.
that. Just get ready for it.
rude.
I don't mean any of it.
Okay, I don't know if I necessarily agree with the fact that snap change makes you more animalistic because animals do, a lot of them live in herds and live in packs and all play cohesive roles to protect each other and are very nurturing to each other. And I think saying that that is the difference between animals and humans can't be justified when they do play a part in society. They are nurturing to each other a lot of times.
That's a real hurdle.
So, I've been listening to everything you're saying, but it's kind of hard to get behind that when the base argument you use to say a lot of that kind of falls through for me.
Well,
But then on top of that, it's
Listening to everything I'm saying, could you teach my students how to do that? Thank you, folks. Just joking.
okay, good job.
But another thing is that I wanted to say another purpose for the prisons, because we said that they're supposed to be for rehabilitation, is it's for society's comfort. And that kind of popped up a couple of times. Like, how can you say that this guy who thinks through murder can be a productive part to society? You don't want him running around, so you lock him up for your comfort. So it's not just to rehabilitate these people, it's to make us that are walking around daily
Preserve society.
feel better about walking around, that we're not going to get murdered more than likely, because the murderers aren't just running around still.
I think that's a big component. If I just let me just add one little thing to that, I want to tag it. I think it comes down to this ultimately. If somebody is proven beyond a shadow of a doubt to have rationally planned out a killing in cold blood, what is the likelihood of that person recovering or rehabilitating to the point where they won't act on that again? Because it's not as though, again, it was in self-defense. It wasn't an impulsive move. They sat there. If they're rational enough to understand the laws and why it's wrong and why they shouldn't, and they chose to do it anyway. That suggests that they're a danger, and perhaps a perennial danger. This is why they become secluded. But I guess the real question then becomes, well, then why not just give them life in prison? Why the death penalty? Because, well, on the other hand, they could murder inmates in prison. You know, if you're in prison and you murder another prisoner, that's still murder. But also, I think it has to do with the first thing we're talking about, this idea of retribution, this idea of, well, he did something so horrible, and we have strong evidence to believe that he's not regretting it, or something along these lines. But is that enough even? Because as we know, according to Uche, life is nothing but puppy dogs and ice cream. So that doesn't seem fair.
Okay, well, I would like to touch back onto what you said. I do see that animals can be cohesive, and it's very similar to how humans are. But the difference that I claim that humans and animals have is the level of empathy and compassion that we have. Clearly, if you look at a society of dogs and a society of humans, there's the cohesiveness we have broadens to a point where we have countries populated with humans that can entirely function together under one doctrine of rules. So that would be, because we all know that we need to play our part in this society if we want to keep it functioning, if we want to keep the wheels moving and everything. So that was the.
But not just functioning, because I think you're on a roll here. But just to say, also to make sure we flourish, that we're happy, that we have life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. The first part is life.
But another thing on that is, like, the herds all follow the same rules. The herds all know that they need to do this. They don't have the media and the internet to be able to influence as wide as a human can, because we have the technology advantage. So that's why we have the larger nations, but they still have the influence. And then the empathy, if you research some animals like crows, they actually have funerals for dead crows a lot of times. Like, they gather together and they cry.
Interestingly, a group of crows is called a murder.
That's actually true.
Kick him out of here. Get this guy out of here.
But it's I mean, there's a lot of animals that show that compassion and the empathy. Like the gorillas, if the parents of another gorilla dies, they take in that orphan instantly. So it's an instant kind of thing. There is compassion, and sometimes it's shown more than it is in humans. So that thing that we call compassion, the humanity, is displayed in animals if you look at animals, and sometimes more so than in humans. So
interesting. Wow. Okay. So that would bring us down a whole nother topic of animal capacity.
That's why I stopped there.
No, but I think I think that's a very logical way to back your position there on this. Just for the record, is there? So as you guys know, and this came up, but I might as well bring it up. It depends on the state whether or not capital punishment is allowed. Do you guys know where Texas falls on that?
Allows.
Yeah.
Yeah, straight up.
I think it's pretty obvious. Just make sure on the
I
same
think
page.
it's only by lethal injection at this point, though.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I don't think we can hang anymore or electric chair.
Yeah,
or
it's-
anything like that.
And why do you think that is? Why lethal injection?
It's about
Cleanest.
the least painful way
Yeah.
to die.
Yeah, or
That-
the most humane way.
That's why we put them to sleep in the first place, and that's why I mentioned when it first came up. It's either abused, it's not done right, or people are. There's no easy way to, or there's no simple or overly complicated way to litigate whether somebody will kill again, or even if by accident, right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Did you know there's actually sometimes that the lethal injection has failed?
Yeah.
It
Really?
hasn't hit through. Yeah, there's a couple of times that they didn't actually die from it, and it can cause some pretty bad side effects for the rest of their life.
How often?
Yeah.
What?
No.
The rest of their lives.
No,
No,
like
no.
if they're still alive, if it failed, it can cause like
Like
mental
a couple
demands.
minutes or something.
Yeah.
No, like sometimes
just,
it fails for a while. Like
the-
they live for a long.
the
for a
thing
while.
is, it takes
I would think that if someone gets put
It's-
to death, they
it's
don't
rare.
get like 5 years.
it takes
It's
like
rare,
8
it's
minutes.
rare.
No,
That's Spider-Man's origin story,
it's
right?
a constitutional.
Something like that.
It's a constitutional
Venom.
problem. It's a constitutional
It's Conor
problem
McGregor's origin
because
story.
yeah, it takes 8 minutes of the most painful way to die without being asleep, right? That's why we put him to sleep. But they did not give him enough of anesthesia, and he was awake enough to say, "I can feel my body burning." This is why I don't know. Some place actually started starting doing execution by gunfire to the heart. There was it happened at some point. I don't remember, but it
Wow.
happened.
Like a firing
Well,
squad.
this-
A firing
yeah,
squad. Death by
there's,
firing squad.
Actually, it's a 7.12% botch rate on the ejections, lethal injections,
So if a person
according
gets
to the deathpenaltyinfo.org
news to
website
me.
I just looked up.
Oh
And
my
that's the
gosh.
highest rate that they show. The next highest is 5.4 from lethal gas.
if a
Wow.
person gets the lethal injection and they survive, what happens?
Actually,
they become president. They become king.
No,
somebody
They run
survived.
the department
I
now.
think I know
They
this is
give
what
the
you're
lethal-
going to. I haven't seen the
Somebody
but-
survived electrocution,
Heck no.
and he
Static
was
shock.
well. I don't. This could be a myth, but
It's the only way you get on the Philosophy Club radio hour.
Yeah.
Is if you can survive a lethal, then you're gonna have
Yeah,
to be on
you
the
don't
show.
want to be president. That's how
We've all lived through it.
I spent 12 hours in the chair for the presidency.
yeah.
It's better than 1 hour with me.
There's a rumor that a guy survived it not just once but multiple times
electric
because
chair?
the drugs. No,
Yeah,
the lethal injection.
What are you gonna do?
It's I don't
What
know
is
if
his
this is true.
constitution?
Oh,
He
yeah.
just something about the
Let him have
makeup
kids.
doesn't affect him the same way, but it like paralyzed him from the waist down or something like that for life. And
uh,
supposedly
I don't mean
he
to laugh. That's not
sued.
funny.
I don't
And
see-
he sued because of that because he botched multiple times and instead is under house arrest for life. There's a rumor. I have no actual proof I've seen of this, but I have heard the story from like 2 different people. So I don't know how true that is.
I would think that if someone die or survives a lethal injection, they just get it again because they're on death row.
No, that's
They
what
can
they're saying.
shoot-
That
they can
one
shoot
did
lightning
3
now.
times and survived it
yeah,
3 times
Well,
from what I
gee
heard.
whiz. Just try a different
Yeah,
tactic.
they become like Zeus. They're like Perseus and the something. What was that book you recommended me, Emma?
Percy Jackson.
Percy Jackson. Yeah.
I still need to get you a
Percy
copy.
Jackson.
You
Yeah.
need to read it. It's
We
good.
see that you remembered it. Perseus.
Percy.
Nice.
Yeah, I tried.
Hey, you know, it was when we were reading the Greek mythology and stuff.
Yeah, we're doing that right now, man. Show class. Shout out.
Shout out to
1301. Shout out to Yegua.
Ew.
Shout out to
I
Ritual.
just came from Yegua.
2 of my 3 classes are there.
No bueno.
I like it. I don't mind it.
Shout out to Spanish, the language.
Anyhow, yeah. So I do think it's and I will say this. Typically, the Philosophy Club radio hour will be from 2 to 3. We're going a little over today. So I thank you to the host of Rock Shop, which will air from 3 to 4 moving forward.
Shout out Rock Shop.
Shout out Rock Shop. We met the host, I think, last week. He seems like a good dude, so check it out. Especially if you like rock. I've never heard the program myself. Anyways, yeah. So let's get back to this because we're drifting a bit, and I think in a very a very we might say productive way. And so I do want to get back though to that original idea here of capital punishment, in light of the debate that's going to be taking place either tomorrow or maybe a week from then. This idea of why do people? Well, no, I don't want to put it like that. Let me put it this way: why has it been around for so long? What makes it something that is only seems to become
stable
problematic
tool.
recently? Why do you suspect?
I think that it really is something that's a hard question to answer.
Because it suggests it's effective on some level.
Yeah, because again, it gives us comfort. It gives us comfort that they're not walking around again, I think. And on top of that, it's something that, again, punishment has evolved over time. Like an eye for an eye doesn't exist anymore, really. Except in certain ways, you don't, if somebody steals from you, you don't cut his hand off. You don't do that kind of stuff anymore. So I think that punishment overall just evolves, and that's one of the things that kind of, from personally me, got left by the wayside a little bit. Instead of seeing how to alter it, it got left behind and continued and just evolved in how it's performed instead of being moved on from as society advanced.
Yeah, and again, the lethal injection supports your point. It's become more humane, but it's not necessarily completely eroded.
It's become humane when it works.
Yeah, I guess that was your point. Yeah, and when it doesn't work, it's the least humane thing you can imagine.
Yeah, that's why I wouldn't bother
Defending it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Let me throw this out there for your consideration, y'all. When a dog misbehaves, sometimes you put it down. Do cats misbehave? When a cat misbehaves, sometimes
Cat misbehaves.
Yeah.
Cats misbehave.
you'll put them down, and it'll seem like the logical thing to do because if they're acting like this, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, kind of thing. Human beings are not dogs, except for Raul. I'm joking, Raul. He'll never hear this. He's moved
Who
on.
knows? Hopefully.
The point being is this: human beings are different. And yet, there's a similar way we treat certain human beings. And the point I'm trying to draw to you is this. Capital punishment seems to be justifiable on rational grounds for the reasons we've just been describing, but also this idea that, again, rational creatures deserve to be treated as rational creatures until they exhibit irrational behavior. And arguably, the highest form of irrational behavior is becoming a criminal against your society, especially by breaking the greatest laws you have in that society. It becomes questionable how rational you really are, or what's more, how diabolical you really are with your rationality. And so from that perspective, I think you can come to some sort of, not to say that I subscribe to this, but you can come to some sort of rational justification whether or not you believe in anything quote-unquote moral. It serves a pragmatic function, and I think that's kind of what we've been getting at this whole time. To say nothing of a more theological context that comes from this, a more theological defense of capital punishment. Yeah.
Who puts their dog or cat down just for misbehaving? I've not heard of
yeah,
that. Like
like
I've heard
that
of
kid or
sickness or something, but
Yeah.
not misbehaving.
I'll tell you.
That's not rational.
I'll tell you, and I might have even told this story. Oh, hey, how's it going? All right. Yeah, we're getting the signal in a very polite way here. so let's wrap things up. Yeah, guys, I'll just say this: I had a husky that was put down because she escaped and ate an animal. The animal was a cat
wow.
that belonged to a mentally handicapped person, and so the parents demanded we put it down, and they put it down because it was considered to be a perennial threat. So there are some parallels there. For the record, my mother told me they moved her to a farm in Vermont. And it wasn't until I was 20 years old and I was telling that story to my college roommates when they laughed at me and told me that, in fact, my mom had clearly lied to me. And when I confronted her, she said, we're on reruns here. I told this story on the podcast before. She said that I should stop hanging out with those friends because they don't have my best interest in mind. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up things real quick here.
That was a quality ending.
Right. Got any ideas for topics for next time? Real quick.
Conor McGregor.
No, somebody had something. I think it had to do with compassion and empathy. Well, we'll announce the topic.
Oh, we were
Via
talking
online.
earlier about like how humans and animals both show it differently, but the differences between that, what actually defines the difference of humans and animals.
That's what it was. Something along these lines. So we'll push that and try to rearticulate it. Look for us on Facebook and look for the tweets. We'll tweet out the topics. How's that sound? All right, guys, you're listening
Facebook,
to
Twitter.
Yeah, plug those handles
email.
again.
So Twitter, we're RLC Philosophy Club. You can tweet us at RLC Philosophy. Richland, or Facebook, it's the Richland Philosophy Club. And then also, if you want to shoot me an email or anything just to get on our email list, it is going to be at the philosophy.club.rlc@gmail.com.
Absolutely. So hit us up there, y'all. And
Hit us
again,
up.
continue to look for us on richlandstudentmedia.com as well as YouTube. You're listening to KDUX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We are the voice of Richland College. Are we done with the requack? Did we finish the requack?
I think
don't
we're
think
done
we
with the
ever
whole
really
entire
did.
broadcast.
The views expressed on this show are our own unless otherwise stated and do not reflect the opinion of KDUX Web Radio, Richland College, or the DCCCD. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. We'll see you guys again next Wednesday.
You want to shout something out, Cliff?
RLCBLK.
Yes.
Everywhere.
Awesome.
What was the last C a question in that? You're not quite sure if it's a college district?
We're going back to Spanish. See.
Shout out to Spanish.
All right.
Shout
tune in
out.
later, guys.
Shout out.
Take care.
Shout out
Have a
to-
nice
shout
Wednesday
out-
afternoon. Tune in for Rock Shop up next.